You arrest me and lock me in prison. What benefit do you get? What benefit does the government get? No, this man will be locked away for the next 25 years. A whole able-bodied man like myself, full of life and energy. No, in our royal spaces, I will not arrest you. I will keep you. I'll make you work for the next 25 years. And every penny that you're working for will go to look after the family that you destroyed. Every penny you're going to work for the next 25 years and educate the children whose father you have removed from existence. You assume full responsibility over the life that you've exterminated. Now that's African justice system. But right now, no. Prisons are full. And who is paying? The taxpayers again. The very people who have been disadvantaged are now looking after, and actually some of those prisoners are having 3 meals a day, plus coffee and tea between intervals. And the families that they've destroyed are scratching and struggling for bread and butter issues. And our own tax money is looking after criminals who are sitting in prisons in a four-walled room doing nothing, wasted resources. Hoi, hoi! Yeah, this is Ambira. It's an ancient music instrument from the great Zimbabwe. It's not just a mere instrument. They call it Ambira Zabadzimu. Some of them come in 22, some 36, some 48, almost structured to a kora in the north, but it's from the south, which is intervals of fifths and sixths and sevenths to create a cycle of music around it. So the word Ambira, you read it backwards. The A is the Aleph, the beginning, where it all started. Then the Ra is the sun, which has come from A. Era, time. We celebrate Ra, who has come from A. Bira is the occasion where people gather together to celebrate. And once people gather together, the environment is time. Time is sacred. Sacred recognizes the sun. The sun has come from A. Ra, who has come from A. Now I am Ambira, the one who scratches, the one who taps the Ambira during Bira. Once you hear it, the environment is Ra. We are celebrating Ra, who has come from A. So within the instrument, you actually have the whole concept of spirituality wrapped up in itself. The African owning his time, the African recognizing his creator, the African understanding his sacredness, and the African knowing when to meet in terms of seasons to celebrate that which he is. And then the instrument becomes a vehicle, a journey, a bridging, a cable between two time spaces, times past and times that are in the future. I therefore become a medium through which the communication of the spirit is sent through instrument to sound, to vibration, to cause thinking, perception, resurrection of memory. And within that, then you also have to speak of the science itself of the instrument, the manufacturing of the minerals that make the instrument, the digging of iron ore, the smelting of it, the beating of it, then the scientific formulas of knowing how much to beat in each one of them, calibration to produce the instrument itself, the wood that is used, the type of wood that you are selecting to use it with a specific tree, we call them vamaropa, which is used for making the instrument itself. Then the binding them together, the tension that is put. If I'm too angry and I hit this thing, the tune changes into something else again. And there's a whole spirituality and science between. And I think that this is actually the mother of the piano itself, as I said earlier on. And we still want to promote our basic music instrument, because music is the bridge when it comes to spirituality and religion and all spiritual practices. The horn, the drum, and in the South, the use of the Ambira as it affects the thinking, the mental dynamics, the meeting place itself, the social impartation, the dance, the drums, and the dust in which people's ears are blocked to the world of noise, to a common sound, the heartbeat of the earth. And the combination of those 2, 3, 4 elements begins to have what we might want to call African spirituality, as contrasted to religion, which simply becomes a gathering once a week, on a Wednesday, on a Thursday, on a Friday, on a prayer meeting. This therefore becomes a home-based space where the family would come together, play together, sing together, the symbiosis that family develops, the talents. And you don't play this alone. It's Ambira this side, the shakers on the other side. You also have the horns on the other side, and everyone in the family. Others are just clapping hands as the music is being played. So there's no audience in African spirituality. Everybody is participating. There's no sitting at the back and critiquing the program. Oh, I didn't like the music. Did you see the choir master was not well dressed? This one, but in African spirituality, it is the whole family in a space of interaction. And I think fundamentally, this is where religious expression finds its true definition of existence, where you involve every person. Someone comes with a broken heart, someone comes with a financial problem, someone comes with a disaster, and at a place of spiritual conversation, we all bring our burdens, we all bring our sorrows, we all bring our joys together, and we fuse all these things into a pot of participation, where all of us are receiving healing, as it were. And depending on the quality of vibration between hearts at that moment, some people can actually leap over between the natural and the supernatural, and then messages and signals and what you might call demon possession, which is ancestral conversations, can begin to happen. And then you can begin to hear your grandfathers manifesting as voices of instructions, children that will be born, wars that are pending, diseases that are in the air, dangers that are lurking in the family, household, and etc. And therefore this becomes a plugging in, as it were. We all bring our USB cables and we supernaturally place them in this spiritual pot, and we all download data and information, and it unites us to become a common space where spirituality happens. On the contrary, in the religious space, which is colonial, then you have one man in front holding a Bible and a choir on the left, and people are all sitting and they are listening to one man telling us what he thinks life must be like and what God says it must. No, you don't tell me what God is saying. I can hear it for myself. Play the drum. I will hear the God in me responding to the God outside. Now, when you look into this sacred space, which you call Ira, the sacred, the holy, the set aside, the sanctified, isolated for personal and spiritual manifestation, into the religious circle, which is now colonial, where the master places one person who must give dictates to the community as to how they should. You begin to talk of what we call institutionalization of religion, where I, the bishop, I, the pastor, become the ruler of which your spirituality must be expressed. This is how that God wants you to behave. This is how he wants you to dress. This is how he wants you to play your music. Oh, you can't do that. God does not like it. And some of our modern pastors are even cheeky. God said this to me last night. God said this to me last night. Whether God appeared or not, it's a conversation for another day. But in the midst of these lies and criminal, spiritual thugs who constantly dictate what God says, as if God does not have access to me. This other person comes to me and says, hey, Maponga, God says this to me, God says to me. I said, you shut up that nonsense. If that God said that to you, go back to him and tell him, give him my physical address. He must come and talk to me directly. I don't need you to be a mediator between me and the God who has made me. I don't need translation of faith. But the coming in of colonial religion with its superiority complex, I call it superiority because it is inferior. Those that are superior don't need to project themselves as superior. You just be. You've never heard of a campaign where African religions are running a crusade to recruit people to come and join the church, as it were. These crusades, the Benny Hinn crusades that come here, and the pastors, evangelists, booking stadiums to come and perform miracles in stadiums. And while people are going to the stadiums, and the pastors themselves, they're going past hospitals, they're going past people on the street who are sick, who are poor, who need help, who need healing. But no, you must come to the stadium so that I can perform the miracles. If I had that gift, I don't need to conduct a crusade. I just need to tell the driver, please park the car. Let's get into this hospital. In the name of Jesus, in the name of Jesus, in the name of Jesus, be healed, be healed, be healed. Who needs the help? The one who can walk to the stadium or the one who is sleeping on a bed? And even if you can use the biblical illustration where Jesus went to the pool of Bethesda, where the sick, the blind, the halt, the impotent, the disadvantaged, and the crippled were sitting at the pool, and he healed them from where they were. So colonial religion, as it were, with its appetite of power, and you need to put it in context, because religion does not come alone. Religion comes hiding under the armpit of the explorer who has seen what the African is doing. And religion comes as a pacifier to manage the anger of the Africans. When a man slaps you on one cheek, oh no, give him the other cheek. If a man steals your jacket, give him the waistcoat also. And one of the most beautiful verses that was drummed into the African, oh, love your enemies and pray for those that persecute you. And the other one, judgment belongs to the Lord. And the other one, don't worry about the things of this world. We have a home that is beyond the sky. In the sweet by and by, we shall walk the streets of gold and sing praises, hallelujah, and etc. And as it were, the African mind is moved away from his land, his resources, his privileges, his lifestyle, and he postpones his visions and his dreams into the clouds, way beyond the sky, beyond the River Jordan, where we are going to be. And within the same context, if you can be a critical thinker, you will be able to notice that Christianity is actually a forerunner of Zionism. I will explain. Because once you accept that the God of the Bible is the only God, the God of Israel is the only God, all of a sudden you have become an Israelite. Because then the theology says, if you become a Christian, you become the spiritual Israel. Now, how do you fight the physical Israel when you are the spiritual Israel? Then you find all these religious movements who promote the Israel state. And Israel must continuously be allowed to become what they must be because they are God's chosen people. Now, if the Israelites are the chosen people of God, then who made the rest of us? And if this God really loves the Israelites to that extent, then why does he give them the land that belongs to the Palestinians? Why not just create another land for your favorite children and keep them away from everybody else? Why would you allow your favorite children to bully everybody else around the world and kill and butcher and slaughter children and women in the name of we are the chosen? So this concept again of religion creates the superior race above everybody else. And this superior race is ungovernable. And in the last few years, we've seen the mischief of Israel putting its hands into the constitutions of America, swindling millions and billions of dollars through the American government to support the Jews in Israel. Why? Because the Jews that are in America are running the banks, running the insurances, and they're the main lobbyists in terms of business and etc. They actually are responsible for setting up the governments in America. And at the end of the day, when the president is in power, he has nothing to do but to follow the religious dictates of the financial muscle. So look at that. When religion and money find each other and they put their hands on politics with God as the inspiration of their behavior, they become ungovernable. Because whatever they are doing is deemed as supreme. So Netanyahu, when he looks at the whole world, he does not see human beings. He sees himself as the supreme, the most favorite of God's children on the face of the earth. And he's leading that army. That is the favorite of God. So the Bible in each home is a confirmation that Netanyahu is right. Unfortunately, when you are the chosen and you're the remnant, You can't be wrong. You're always right. And the God of Israel will always fight for you. Now, this ideology of religion finds its way into the judiciary systems very gently, even in your court systems. Here you are being sworn in as a president. And before you notice it, from nowhere, chiki, the Bible is on your face. Can you put your hand here and lift up your hand and swear by the Bible? Why? Because it is now deemed as the center and the source of all truth. But unfortunately, we all know, immediately after they finish swearing on that very book, they go and they steal, and they lie, and they cheat, and they kill. While one hand is on the Bible, the other hand is on the gun. The other hand is in the bank. The other hand is looting. I wonder what kind of God creates a nation like that, which then uses the very scriptures, thou shalt not steal, but you go to government to steal from people, loot from them, and butcher them. Look at the American dollar. In God we trust. Beautiful. In God we trust. But what are you using the same dollar around the world? You use it to oppress people. You use it to buy weapons. You use it to manipulate currencies and destroy the whole world. Is this the God you're telling us that we must all believe? But the real question that we're asking ourselves, how did these European religions find themselves into the African way of life and consider themselves as the final dictates of morality, of ethics, and of behavior? 2 or 3 levels of thinking can get on that. Number 1, it is the economics of the Bible, the economics of religion, where the church became the center of education, very strategically. When the religions came into Africa, particularly the missionary society, the London Missionary Society, as of 1903, coming this way, after the falling of the stars in Europe, the earthquakes in Europe, and the sun turning black during those days, people who were reading the scriptures, they heard that in the last days, the sun will go black, the stars will fall, there will be earthquakes and what. And when they saw these things happening in their heads, they actually believed that Jesus was coming again. And before he comes again, let's go and Christianize the whole world so that we can expedite the second coming of Christ. So the disasters of Europe actually gave birth to the London Missionary Society. Boom, they came to Africa. What did? They put their shrines and temples and churches on all our sacred sites where we were worshiping. They only walk around Southern Africa. Most of the shrines and temples and monasteries are actually sitting on sacred mountains, sacred spaces. So they went and placed them. In some certain cases, like C.C. John Rhodes, even went to an extent of being buried on our most sacred site in Zimbabwe, where we used to do our sacred worship and etc. He put his graveyard right there, as if when you come here, you must see me first and worship me. And then they came up with the concept of institutionalization. These are schools which were built. And the strategic move of building school was critical. Because while the men were taken over to the industries and to the mines to work, the church was smart. It went back to the village where the men were no longer there. And the only man in the community was the father. How amazing. These are the Catholic fathers, the church fathers. So the only father in the community was the churchman, who became the father to our wives, to our mothers. It's not embarrassing to mention that in some of those communities, then colored children started to appear. And then you wonder whose children are they, because there was only one white man in the community and he's the father. And then you find all these colored children appearing. So the father was not just fathering in church. He started also fathering in our own homes and sleeping with our wives in the absence of the husbands. Some of those children are killed, of course, but the circus continues. That then the institutions, the academic institutions, then withdrew the children from the mothers in the absence of the fathers. And in these private schools, they started teaching the children education from its elementary levels, primary school, high school, boarding schools, college. And at college, the sharpest of minds would get scholarships into America, Kwame Nkrumah, Mugabe. So you look at all these African leaders during liberation, who all were educated. Show me one of them who did not go through a missionary school, a convent, who did not go through an academic institution. That had the church molding their minds. This was a future projection, that if this liberation movement is going to come, and liberate these Africans. We need the educated African whom we have prepared mentally and otherwise. His ethics will be according to his education. His morality will be according to our education. And in some cases, if not all the cases, even his religion will protect us because he is a child that has come from us. So they learned how to read rosaries, Hail Mary, the Mother of Christ, blah, blah. They started kissing the 2 bags of cement and 1 bucket of paint. They call it the image of Mary. They started doing monasteries. Shame to say, in some of these monasteries, boy molestation was rife, etc. So some of them already grew up traumatized, sodomized, injured, as it were. By later on, you come to the 21st century when you find these ministers and government officials, the educated community becoming homosexual and etc. You may want to ask the question, where did they get that orientation? If it was not from these religious institutions. And the other day I was reading a whole nun monastery which had more than 700 fetus babies that were found in a sewage tank in just one monastery. So you can understand the amount of immorality that is happening behind those closed walls. And then you come back and ask and say, but how can this become an institution of morality? So there you have the educational institutions. That becomes the breeding ground of the mindset of the people. Then you hear leaders such as Frederick Chiluba picking up the microphone in Zambia. Boom, 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 boom. One Zambia, one nation. And he makes a declaration. Zambia is a Christian nation. All along you're talking democracy, that people are free to choose for themselves to become what they want. But why is it that today, this morning, you wake up and declare all of us as Christian nations? Did we vote for that? Did we agree for that? No, because you're a leader. You're coming from a religious perspective. And this is what you're taught. So you put this black marker in front of you. Kenya, interesting space for me. A few months ago, it's been fascinating. I heard that Benny Hinn was here and doing crusades and what and what. The other month I was also reading the state president having employed a full-time pastor for the state house, praying in the name of Jesus, altars in the parliament houses, praying pastor, praying president, praying Mrs. First President. And the other day I was reading a few days ago that he's planning to build the biggest church, the state church. Yeah, and no one will stop me from building this. You look at him and say, where do you get all this obsession with church except your childhood fantasy of making Christianity popular has caught up with you? How much unemployment is in the country? What would Ruto lose to take that money, which wants to build a church and build a factory, build an industry, employ thousands of young people that are walking the size and breadth of this young people who are driving matatus here and Uber and the borders who need employment instead of investing in what the community wants? No, his obsession is his Jesus, faith and religion. So once the mind has been corrupted to that level, economics, business and government policies, economic policies will start being more sympathetic towards that religious space. So religion creates academic institutions then produce the leaders. The leaders, when they are in power, then they influence the education. We need a Bible at every school so that we can teach our children the morality that we have on the left. And within that institutionalization, there you have the economic policies coming up. And there you have the whole society being made to feel sympathetic towards religion. However, studies and the realities in the 21st century have come to tell us totally the opposite. I've lived in London for years. 5, 6, 7, 8 years. I was there a few weeks ago when I actually discovered Europe, and I gave it a new name called Europa, but particularly Britain I called Pambefumi, the home of the tomb raiders. You get there, you find these churches are being converted into brothels, they're being converted into movie houses, they're being converted into theaters, into dance halls, into pubs in some certain instances. One wonders, what happened between the 1903s and 2003? The European is no longer religious, is no longer Christian. He no longer finds meaning in that. And where Europe was, 1903, that's where Africa is right now. On every street corner, there is a church. We're producing more than 3,000, 5,000, 6,000 pastors every year. We're building so many churches every year, while China is producing technicians, producing engineers, producing pilots, producing inventors. Here we are. You find some people getting so sentimental. I saw the other day child abuse. I need to actually sue those parents. 5, 6, 7-year-old kids, all of them holding microphones, claiming and trying to imitate their pastors, speaking in tongues and etc. And people are so sentimental to see their young little children fully brainwashed at that early age, that they are already also starting to cast out spirits and casting out demons in Jesus' mighty name. This is the level of mental degradation that religion has brought. At the end of the day, America put the cherry on the cake just when we had swallowed this entire religious conversation into our system. They pulled a quick one on us. It started off as gay rights, just started off as male and female. We thought we understood it. Then it came out as a gay and lesbian. Oh, okay. Maybe just male and female. Then it became LGB, and then LGB, then LGBT, and then LGBTQ, LGBTQAIYZIFG. Now we don't know. You have people, I identify as, I identify as. And the source of that chaos is God. God created all of us. God is love. God is what? Now, you find it in the present day, Catholic, Anglican, Presbyterian, Protestant pastors who are fully proclaimed as LGBTQ ministers into this rainbow nation that they want to call. And in the midst of that, then you begin to ask, what is the morality of the nation going to be? I am here not to lambast or bash what people do behind their closed doors. My responsibility as a traditionalist and as an African spiritual leader is to look into the community and look at the center of the community. What is it that has brought us here as a people? What is the center of the community? And that is the family. It is men and women making children for the next generation, for the next generation. And this is what I call humanity in progress and in life. The sideline of that, either on the lesbian side or on the gay or homosexual side, does not give me longevity beyond itself. Yes, then they have all these claims, but we all cannot make children. Some of the children we need to adopt them. But when you adopt the children from the source at which they are brought up, what lifestyles are you putting them into? If not, you are now becoming a center of evangelism for indoctrinating these children to be like yourselves while destroying the center. I'm here to protect the center of the community, and that is the family, and that is male and female are the center through which life can be continued. If you want to adopt children, I'll just make a comment on the right. Tell the lesbians and the gay people, if you want children, then marry each other and produce your own children. There you are again at the center where you're running away from. So lesbians by themselves, non-productive. The gay by themselves, non-productive. And if you want children, come back to the center. Even these two groups are produced from the center. And therefore, if we fail to understand what is the center of the community, we'll continuously be led astray by this sideline. Of course, there are conspiracies around population control, the demasculating of men, and many other theories that have come around that. But I doubt it that religion, with all its theology and dogma and ecclesiastical liturgy, can stand to challenge African culture in particular. Because within African culture, there's a clear demarcation of what morality is, what is right and what is wrong. And these principles are taught through our rites of passage. At such and such an age, this is what you do. This is what you don't do. You don't just take someone's daughter and do this. You don't take someone's cow and do that. You don't do that. You don't do that. So the morality of the community was solid and tight. And while you're on that, let's put it into context again, that before the coming of the white men here, we had no prisons at all. So tell me, how did we used to run our ethics, our criminal courts? How did we used to run our issues of law and breakages? We were doing something very simple. It was crime and retribution. It was crime and payments, so that in any time you committed a crime, the repercussions were equally gross. You would be evicted from your home, you would lose your cows, you would lose your children. In some cases, you would lose your wife, you would lose your land. And in the midst of that, it was not falling in from the sky. There was this ritual, which I think I managed to enjoy when I was in Kirinyaga, talking to some of the elders, where when the boys went for circumcision, and by the way, this is where this cup comes in handy. When the boys went for circumcision to become men, then they created these shields, which have emblems, which are sacred, by the way. Many of you young people may not even know and understand those shields which tourists are buying. Each one of them is different because it represents a generation of men who went through the process of circumcision. But while they're at circumcision, they're actually being taught certain values. And these people that have been cut together share a common code together, share a common understanding. And I know in the depth of Kenyan culture, when your husband gives you trouble and the family cannot help, the brothers and sisters cannot help, you can call that man who went with him to the initiation school. And those boys will come because they hold each other accountable to the knowledge that they received during their rites of passage. Imagine, had Ruto gone through this process, his comrades, whom he went with to circumcision, should have been sitting around his home and say, is this what we were taught during our processes? Imagine if our religious leaders and political leaders had gone through this system. In other words, the African culture had a support base, both for political correction, social correction, and business correction, where this clique of undefined group of people actually had an authority and information balancing in case one of you became a deviant. So for me, this becomes very important. You know, talking about moral and ethics, I don't want to make it homogeneous, that the morality and ethics of Kenya could be the same as the morality of the Zulus and the Ngunis. Because you walk in some certain cultures, if you find a spear in the front of a door of your own house, you can't enter that house because it means that another man is here, even it is with your wife. Then you come to the other side, if I find you in my house, I'll make you pay cows. So it's not homogeneous. Each culture interpreted it. But again, when you study the science of these, what you might call deviant behaviors, you find there's lots of depth in terms of crossbreeding, cross-pollination. The gene pool is expanded. I mean, I grew up particularly. I didn't breastfeed on all of my mother's breast. I breastfed on my mother's breast, on her sister, on my cousin's mother, on my aunt, whoever remained with us in the house for that day. That became our breastfeeding station for the day. And you may look back as young people and go, yuck, you mean you drank from her and from her, from here? But then go and do your research. And you find that immune is boosted when children are breastfeeding from various breast milks. The whole lot of science that goes around that. On another day, I might giggle and ask, human beings are the only ones who are very popular at drinking other animals' milk. Why can't we just drink human milk, all of us, and put it in our teas and etc.? But then that's a conversation for another day. But then the ethics and morality of the African culture was incumbent in each one of us. Listen to me as I conclude. Number one, the root of the African ethics and morality was not founded outside. It was founded on the inside. Law number one, law of self-preservation. How do you preserve yourself as a human being? This is on the greetings. Sanbonani, Dumelang, and you know, in Kenya, Karibu, and Asante, you know, whatever, Jambo. In these greetings that are plural, all-inclusive. I see you, I like the Zulu one, Sawubona. Not just I see you. It translated, I see you, but it is coming in the plural. So when they greet up to this, I see them in you. Therefore, a human being is not singular, but a human being is plural, in that those that come with you. The gene pool, which has come together on your maternal and paternal side, to make the composite of which I am looking at. When I am greeting you, therefore, I'm not greeting you, I'm greeting them who are with you. Now, how do you preserve yourself? Your allegiance was no longer to the I, who is the singular, but your allegiance is to the I, which is plural, as to all those that are coming with me. Therefore, I respect myself not as an individual. I respect myself because I carry my grandmothers on my father's side. I carry my grandmothers on my mother's side. I carry my grandfathers on my mother's side. I carry my grandfathers on my father's side. And this makes the famous junction, the cross, at which I am at the center. The portal of life from the history whence I come sits here with me. When you address me, when you want to make children with me, you don't just come and say, I love you. Then you must love them. You must love those to which I come from and understand the history which is written in me, so that when I give you the epitaph or I give you the calendar of my womb to write your own history, to which I become, I'm talking as a woman now, to which you must now reproduce yourself. You need only not to respect the flesh which you see, but respect the spirit at which it represents. Self-preservation, therefore, for you to access that, the conversation was always communal. It is those that are around you who discuss. We have a brother outside who wants to marry you. Do you know them? Yes. Now get outside. And the adults remain talking. Imagine discussing your home in your absence. Man, no, they're not wasting time. They are talking real issues. They are talking, do you know those people? Where do they come from? Are they fighters? Are they warriors? Are they witches? Are they thieves? Are they thugs? Who knows them amongst us here? What history do we have with them? And why are they chasing you outside? Because this data, which they are sharing, if you should hear it, you would run through the door. You would not want to know. You would know too much about your husband, too much about your wife before you even marry them, and that information might destroy you. So we exclude you from your own conversation, and the family group sits together. That's level 2 now, family preservation. So the first, preserve yourself, purity of self. Dignity, discipline of self became more important. The best gift you could give the community, it is the clean you. And the clean you enters the clean family. Then that discusses how do we allow people from outside to multiply with ourselves, as opposed to prostitution, as opposed to these modern weddings and marriages. You meet each other in discos and in parties. Lights are on and lights are off. You can hardly see in the dark. All you can see is some ginger hair in the background or some neon lights. And say, no, that one. In the morning, you are in the courts getting married. The following morning, you are in courts getting divorced. There's no purity. There's no cleanliness. There's no knowledge of who I am, who are they, what are we doing together. This becomes a cooking pot of chaos. Family preservation became next. You don't just make children by yourself. Why? Because you don't live by yourself. Why? Because the day you die, you're going to leave these children. With who? With us. So where do we come in? We need to be involved. When? When you make the home. So that what? In the event you have a problem, then what? You come back to us. Why? Then we can talk. And in the event that you die, then what? These children will return with us. So it's important for those that are in town. Once in a while, take your children back to your grandmothers, back to your aunties, back to your uncles. When you do your birthdays, call extended family. Introduce your children to other family members. Remember, you're not going to be here forever. And the day you drop dead in that tomb, where are these children going to be? This brings me to a very critical point, and I hope I'm not offending anybody. And I'm very glad that America withdrew the US aid, corrupt money, which was walking the streets, mopping children, taking them away from their mothers and fathers and uncles, and calling them orphans. It's a whole new phenomenon. We don't have orphans in Africa. Not at all. If your mother and father die, your father's brother is your father. Your mother's sister is your sister. But in the midst of this whole religious expression, with me, my father, and I, my cup, my father, my mother, my plate, my bed, my what, and it confuses the African who is educated, because he can no longer relate himself within the cultural space from where he came, where you are not of your own. You belong to all of us. It takes a village to bring up a child. And therefore, in the midst of that village, we all find our identity. If you misbehave as a child in the community, the grandfather next door, the grandmother next door, the uncle across the road, all of them have a responsibility to put you straight in order. So the village kept its eyes on all the children. And that's where ethics and morality was being taught. Laws of self-preservation, laws of family preservation. The last level, laws of community preservation. This is where land, transactions, and etc. would happen. Colonization would not respect or understand the mystery of function of African culture. So they put a church there. That's where you receive instruction. They put a school there. That's where you get educated. When you misbehave, they put a court there. That's where we judge you. We put a prison over there. We remove you from the community. And we're done with you. We'll remain doing what we want with your children. As if the justice system is just. It's unjust. I kill you. You arrest me and lock me in prison. What benefit do you get? What benefit does the government get? No, this man will be locked away for the next 25 years. A whole able-bodied man like myself, full of life and energy. No, in our royal spaces, I'll not arrest you. I'll keep you. I'll make you work for the next 25 years. And every penny that you're working for will go to look after the family that you destroyed. Every penny. You're going to work for the next 25 years and educate the children whose father you have removed from existence. You assume full responsibility over the life that you've exterminated. Now that's African justice system. But right now, no. Prisons are full. And who is paying? The taxpayers again. The very people who have been disadvantaged are now looking after, and actually some of those prisoners are having 3 meals a day, plus coffee and tea between intervals. And the families that they've destroyed are scratching and struggling for bread and butter issues. And our own tax money is looking after criminals who are sitting in prisons in a four-walled room doing nothing, wasted resources. I wish I could speak to all African governments. Convert your prisons into cheap labor. Get farms. Let those criminals work their butts out. Food baskets. Work industries, manufacturing. Work. And let the profits of their labor look after the crimes that they have committed. And in that case, therefore, the community becomes a deterrent to the criminal activities that individuals can be found performing in. Because when you commit such a crime, you're not the only one who pays for it. Your entire family, the uncles, the aunties, everybody. If you kill me, we say we want 100 cows, we want 100 oxen. You can't produce them alone. So the entire family, the entire clan, in some certain cases, will have to come together. And we all contribute to pay for the crime that we have committed. Now, look at that example when the whole clan has lost its wealth because of the behavior of one person. How will they treat each other, bring up their children to avoid this happening again? Therefore, the sense of justice, living in harmony with others, deterrence for crime, were already inculcated and built into the system because you knew that whatever you are doing to the community will impact you, your family, and your entire community. The moral ethics of the West is me, myself, and I. In the African culture, I am, because we are. We have allowed a Western hegemony to dictate our behavior, and it has made our communities dysfunctional. Should we look back, we'll be able to see the future. Should we look back, we'll be able to find ourselves. Religion has not helped us. It has made us animals as they are. But in the truth of African spirituality, we can find our true identity and know that I am not alone. I am with them who were in the past. I am my ancestor, for they live in me as I lived in them before I became. The balance could be found in that the one who is looking for the balance know what they're balancing it on. You need to understand exactly if you want that balance. Is it halfway you dress up like an African? Halfway you dress up like a European? Is it a balance where halfway you sing Amazing Grace and halfway you sing Tai Wagai Tai Tai? Is it halfway you do the legality of Western democracy and halfway you do African? That concept of finding halfway between, it's amazing, particularly for us as Africans. The Chinese are becoming more Chinese. No apologies. The Indians, genuine, pure Indians, no apologies. Yes, there's modernity and wherever it's happening, but every house is a shrine. Every house is what? And the Chinese have Buddhists, yogas, and they're functioning. But when you come to Africans, who are the only group that seems to think that when we become half of that and half of this, then we become better of that. If you don't know ourselves, you may be pushed out of the very space, because that halfway concept of can we find a middle ground, the middle ground we are looking for is not within our culture. It is outside. Rather, it is us saying, what is it that we have as a culture that we want to preserve? If we can identify that, whether it be in our governance, whether it be in our economics, whether it be in our education, whether it is in our commerce, whether it is in our entertainment and play, whether it is in our sports and recreation, in our births, in our rites of passages, in our spirituality, in our religion, in our preserving of our sacred sites, the way we set up our system. If we could find this is what makes an African society. And these are like what caused our people to go to war. Many people think that the Kenyan war was fought over democracy. No, the Mau Mau were fighting over the rights of women, and circumcision was a real issue. The war was founded on women. Are we free to practice? If you don't look between the lines to understand, you may think that it was a war on other things. No. We want our land and we want to practice our own culture within our own spaces. Now, when you say you want to look for a balance, you want to go back again and say, why were they doing these practices before you judge them? What was the eminence of this? What was the understanding of women? What is the understanding of, and in the backdrop that this new thing is coming in, how is it impacting on us? Now, how do you find a middle ground? Do you cut halfway or do you cut all the way? Do you practice this or you don't practice it? And if we don't understand why certain things happened, like, for example, the Zulus, they're no longer circumcising. And ask yourself why. Because Shaka, during the raids of the South, he wanted more soldiers. And he heard that some of the soldiers cannot go to war because their wounds are still wet. They can't go to war. Chaka says, to hell with that circumcision. I want soldiers now, close all those schools, bring them for training. Now, a few years later, young people in the Zulu community say, no, we don't circumcise. And you forget that the basis of you not circumcising was actually as a result of a political intervention that Shaka put in place so that he could recruit more soldiers. Now that the war is over, can we go back to our culture or we proceed as such? So when you don't understand culture sometimes, it is nice to stop. So even in the most of gruesome practices, we may need to not just come up with legislative frameworks that we don't understand. Go back and find out why were these practices done. And if the reason for their practice can be identified, then we intervene the problem and the program at the source of its inception. But to just come up with a solution and say, no more this and no more this, without solving other issues. What if I tell you that through Wambui, through Embo, and through Wanjiru, the oracles of the Kirinyaga, the Kenyan community, understood the sacredness of rebirth and birth of the next generation. But the influences of Western culture created a loose community where girls started misbehaving and becoming illicit in terms of their sexual activities. And the community decided, no, these kids are bringing forth illegitimate children because their reproductive system is running ahead of their heads. Let's remove the source of the problem. So if we want to correct it, the question is, stopping circumcision does not stop immorality. How about if we go back and say, how do we fix the immorality which could have caused the circumcision, so that lobbying for the drop-off without understanding the reason for cause, you complicate the whole problem altogether. So you can remove this and you remain with nothing. You lose what was in the past, you lose what is in the future. There you are no longer circumcising, but the whole town is full of prostitution and illegitimate children. Now you have a new problem. A brand new problem full of illegitimate children, illegitimate fathers, and illegitimate mothers. I am not saying that is the reason. I'm just saying, what if? So conception of moral behavior in a society must be understood, but looking for the middle ground, as you rightfully put it, I suggest we identify what is core first. We preserve that for ourselves. Then we can co-opt whatever it is that we are putting, because culture by nature, it is also dynamic. But there are certain things that are not dynamic, like land. Land does not grow. Does not grow. So no matter how much politics you put, you never hear that land expanded. So there are some principles that you cannot allow to say, let's find a middle ground. What middle ground between me losing my land and you having it? So what is the middle ground? Let's share. Let's cut half. What if I don't want to share and all of it is mine? What if you kill me for taking what is mine? Then where is the middle ground between justice and injustice? Where do you practice mercy? But in my own world, if you can object to people accessing justice so that even mercy itself becomes cruelty,